Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast, the podcast designed to be your companion in the journey of self-discovery. I'm Barbara Thompson, your host and a dedicated therapist. I'm the founder and owner of Self-Care Studio, a private counselling practice. With my clients and courses that I create on this podcast, I'm committed to ensuring that you have the support that you need. I created this podcast as a space for you to feel a sense of connection and a reminder that you're not alone in this thing that we call life, this adventure. This podcast is your weekly reminder to trust yourself, live life authentically, and embrace the path that is uniquely yours. Together, we'll explore ways to break free from people-pleasing, overthinking, allowing you to claim your time and energy to live life on your terms. You'll be joined by myself as I take you through some episodes, or during the year I'll have some special self-care experts as guests on my podcast. So if you're ready to step into a life that's truly for you, join me on this journey. Let's navigate the twists and turns of life together, and more importantly, live your life for you. So thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with me today. Let the studio chat begin. Hello, my name is Barbara Thompson. I'm the host of this podcast, the Studio Chat podcast. It is so nice to have you here. Thank you for joining me. And today I speak with Dr. Judith Borger, and she's over in North Carolina. And there's just some people that you meet either face-to-face or now online. I'm finding more and more when I do these podcast episodes that when you connect with someone, you just vibe off them. We just had such a great chat, and thank you so much for joining me on this podcast, Judith, because she just gives such a good insight into things. And I don't normally do an intro on my podcast, but today I want to, because I think it's really important get to know a bit about Judith before we start this episode today. So she is a mum of three, a wife, a board-certified physician and successful business owner of both the Aesthetic Doctor and Concierge Medical Arts. And Concierge Medical Arts is a concierge medical aesthetics practice that she has in North Carolina that offers a full spectrum of non-surgical medical aesthetics centered on the individual patient and their experience and goals. She also has a podcast, The Aesthetics Doctor, as well as courses, life and business coaching. And it's just, when you dive into this episode, it's just so great to hear someone that's such a role model for all of us. And she really believes in seeing that we all have this ability to see infinite possibilities. And her mission is to help others create their most authentic and beautiful lives, to include their self-image and relationship to self, relationships with others and their businesses. Judith is an expert in growing, expanding, and pivoting businesses that are aligned with their owners' core missions and beliefs. In her life coaching, she helps her clients create lives that are more closely aligned with their authentic selves and their dream lives. And she helps them to create more clarity, freedom, and being expansive with their ideas. Dr. Borger is a graduate and practitioner of Martha Beck's Wayfinder coaching method. She has extensively lectured nationally and internationally on all sorts of various topics, including laser physiology and treatments, aesthetics, business growth, physician wellness, emergency, and aesthetic medicine. It's a real honor to have someone like this on my podcast today. She's also been invited to do lectures with the American Med Spa Association, and she's recently trialing some new skin tightening devices as well. She attended medical school at the University of New England College of Osteopathic Medicine and completed an emergency medicine residency at Michigan State University in conjunction with Western Michigan University. She's completed her fellowship training at Duke University and worked as an attending physician and clinical instructor at Duke University for 2 years before joining Cape Fear Valley Medical Center as an attending physician. She currently holds a faculty appointment at Drexel University and is a core faculty member for the emergency medicine residency at Cape Fear Valley Medical Center. Dr. Borger continues to practice pediatric emergency medicine. I'm going to put all her contact details in the show notes, her website, Instagram, and her podcast. Let's dive right on into episode 94, talking about inner and outer beauty, emergency medicine, aesthetic medicine, wellness and well-being with Dr. Judith Borger. Today we are heading off to North Carolina and I'm so thrilled and honored, and it's a great pleasure to have Dr. Judith Borger on my podcast today. Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast.
Hello. I'm so honored to be here. How are you today?
Oh, I'm wonderful. And I love your dusky pink scrubs that you're wearing.
Thank you. Yeah, I love all the colors. So I have a rainbow of scrubs, really.
And I love them too because your name's embroidered like on them. So they look very aesthetically pleasing.
Well, thank you.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But my listeners have heard a bit about you in the introduction, about a bit about your story and why you do what you do. And I'd love to kick off by asking you, when you've started in emergency medicine and moved to aesthetics, like how did you move from emergency, doing those kind of procedures and seeing those people in their hour of need, to working with the aesthetic side?
Yeah, it's a great question. And actually, the story starts a little before I picked emergency medicine, because I really almost did dermatology in order to be able to go into the field. And I don't know how your medical school system is set up, but for us during your medical school, you do like different rotations in different departments, and then you pick where you're going to do your residency, right? And I really thought I was going to do dermatology, and then I did dermatology rotation, and it was like this old dermatologist, and it was literally like rash prescription, 60 times a day. And I was like, oh, I can't do this. Like, this is not what I'm going to be doing with my life. And I kind of liked everything a lot, but not one thing. And that's where emergency is like the perfect field if you want to do like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And you want to be spontaneous and you love like, meeting lots of different people. And so, I'm still practicing emergency part-time because I like the work of it. However, there was always this interest. So I always took like continuing education courses and all of this stuff. And then, you kind of get to a point I got to this point about 7, 8 years into my career post-residency where, sort of that challenge in your day-to-day job is gone. And I really realized that I missed using that right brain creative side in my job, because emergency medicine is amazing. Yeah. And it's not really creative. It's very algorithmic. It's very like, there's like right or wrong answers. And I missed that creative side. And I also did miss a little bit the longevity connection with my patients. Because, you see people in their hour of need, and then hopefully you don't see them again. Or, especially if they're really sick and you save them, like they're not going to remember you. Your goal is to get them in and out as fast as possible. And so I did miss that connection, and seeing that it was always something that was there, that I thought about, that I'd taken courses about, that I would naturally like pick up the journals and read and the science to follow. I, did continuing education courses to get trained in non-surgical aesthetics. And of course, I was doing a lot of procedures in emergency medicine. So I was already a proceduralist. I kind of always say, like, if I can like crack open your chest and like put needles in your heart and in your lungs, like, needles in your face is a little bit like, it's like procedurally, I did not have the issue. And then so I love being able to combine really the science with the art, with the right brain. And I like love the balance of the two. So I think it's really become a thing that I found that there wasn't one thing that fulfilled all the multifacetedness of me. So I really, and maybe that has also been the ultimate ER doctor, like instead of doing one thing 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week, I split my time doing different things that really fulfill different parts of all my sides.
Yeah, because I would imagine being an ER doctor too, the amount of adrenaline and the amount of go, 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 one person to another, and you've just got to have that brain on, which is great. But I love how you explained how the other side of the brain, you're like, actually, that is all good and well. But I get a lot from that because you're still doing it now. But I think also it's the aesthetic side. And I think the aesthetic side, I don't know about over your way, but here it does still get a bit of a bad rap, as in, oh, you're vain, or why are you getting that done? Where we're going to talk about beauty being on the inside and also on the outside. And I know that's a bit cliche, but it's more. Sorry if anyone's listening to me. I have a puppy that is literally biting my hand right now, so I'm trying to be professional.
That is super cute, by the way. If you can't see it, super cute puppy.
It's super cute, but she's being super naughty. So when we're talking about, thank you, Tully, she's just lost my train of thought. So what we're talking about with emergency medicine being like, now, here, do this, do that, energy, adrenaline, and then moving to aesthetics. I'd really love for us to talk about moving into the aesthetic side now of there's nothing better than when you feel good and then you
Absolutely.
look, and then you take better care of yourself. So have you seen the difference in your patients that you work with, how the difference that aesthetic medicine can make to someone's life?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the reasons I really love it is because I see it as something very, very deep. When I think if people only think about the vanity aspect of it, there's a huge point that they're missing. Especially when we talk about you and I, we're both women over 40, right? Like, really, a lot of times when people come to me, it's because they feel like their outside doesn't match what they feel like on the inside. Like they see themselves full of life and full of energy and full of this. And then they look in the mirror and they're like, oh, I feel like I look old and I look tired and I don't feel that way. And I get these comments and, I make the self-talk. So really, I mean, I firmly believe that if I can allow somebody's outside to match the inside, that their whole life improves in the sense that we know that it's sort of like when you put on that outfit that looks great on you, you're going to stand up straighter, you're going to walk different, you're going to maybe initiate conversations with strangers, you're going to smile more, you're going to get that positive feedback not just from other people but also from yourself. And it's actually really interesting because there is science out there that suggests that getting Botox actually has a similar effect as low-dose Prozac in terms of your well-being. And so just with this idea that there is actually certain ways that the science works. So number one is the mirror neurons. Like, for example, if I'm more positive and even like, for example, I treat my 11s and I don't have that frown, other people are going to respond differently to me because they're going to sense that positivity and also not see the frown, be like, is she mad? Is she pissed off? Like, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
And so there's actually a mirror neuron science that says that we kind of feed off the cues that we get from other people. And then, even way, way back in the day, Charles Darwin actually wrote on the fact that when you frown, like not only does your face show the frown, but there's also a feedback circuit that says, oh, things must be bad, I'm frowning. So it works the other way. If you're not frowning or you're not, then your body sort of goes, or your brain goes, well, it can't be that bad because I'm not frowning. And so it's really interesting how there is a lot of science also that supports it, but absolutely. I mean, if women feel fabulous, if women look fabulous, I mean, most of them show up differently and more powerful in this world.
Why do you think that there's still so much, like in our generation, I believe there's still so much, oh, God, I've got so much to say. I've got so much I want to ask you. So in our generation, I feel like there's still so much stigma with if you want to better yourself or look better, like age gracefully, or you shouldn't do this, or then there's people that just get too much. So then the younger generation, there is preventative aesthetic medicine, which, I love and I'm a big fan of. But, there are some people, I believe, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that are I'm asking you so many questions here, but people that just take it too far. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we know that all of that can be completely pathological. And, you are a mental health professional. All these aesthetic procedures are not meant to compensate for, because we know that if you have self-loathing, if you suffer from body dysmorphia, like no matter what's going on the outside, it's not going to change how you feel on the inside. The ideal person for aesthetics is really somebody who's also doing the inner work and who's doing all the other things in their life. And it is part of their self-care and it's part of their looking the best. If and yes, there is complete pathology where people, like the body dysmorphia, where what people see in the mirror is not what's actually reflected. And then it become an addiction. And then they think they're going to be happy if they just have one more plastic surgery and one more plastic surgery. But if you're not happy with yourself or you're not doing the inner work as well of healing and all of the other things, then that's never going to happen. And I think part of it is also the tragedy that there's always going to be a surgeon who will not say no and take the money, while I tell plenty of people, look, I don't think you need more filler right now, like come back in 6 months, or like we want to keep it natural, and why do you want this, and what's really going on, and what do you really see in the mirror. So it's a very, very complex topics. And of course, I mean, and especially, in the celebrity world. I mean, last year when Madonna came out on the red carpet, I think it was last year that she had a couple appearances where her face was super overfilled and poofy and all of the things. And it shows you that no matter how much money and how much fame you have, that it's really all about the inner work as well.
Yeah, I'm a really big believer in that. But it's also interesting that now more than ever, we've got the ability to change how we look. And we're all programmed. And this is something that's not new. Our mindsets and how we look has all been marketed to, we all want to look a certain way. And what I'm seeing with my younger clients, especially, they are actually all starting to look the same. Like when they show me photos, I've mentioned this on some of my podcasts before. When they show me photos, me and the girls went out this weekend. Can I show you the photo? I'm like, absolutely. Show me your photos or show me your text. A lot of my clients do that. And most of the time now, when I'm seeing anyone under the age of 30, they show me their big group of friends. I'm like, oh,
Which one are you?
which one are you? There's this core aesthetic that everyone's kind of striving to. There's natural beauty. But what I believe and what I see in my clients is we all are different. We are all going to be different. But the thing is, especially with the way we look or our weight, I love to encourage people to look at old photos. And a lot of the time when you look at a photo, whatever your concern was, especially when we're talking about the way we look, 9 times out of 10, I can guarantee you, if you pick up a photo of 5, 10 years ago, it doesn't even have to be that long. You look at the photo and you go, oh, I didn't look that bad, or oh, my lips look good, or oh, I wasn't as big as I thought I was, or whatever. And that tells us everything that we need to know. It's not about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, right? The stories that we tell ourselves. And I think you're absolutely right. Like there's always been a core aesthetic. Like I remember remember when, I don't know if you ever had going out tops, like, we had the jeans and the going out tops and the bleach blonde hair, like like the Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie kind of style. And like back then that was the aesthetic, right? And we all had the worst dye jobs, I'm sure, like, right, and the fake tan and the going out tops and the going out jeans. And so it probably has been a lot same. You're absolutely right, it's always been like that. However, you're right, now we have way more access to some of these things, some of the aesthetics. And and you're right, sometimes it's like those distinguishing features that make us beautiful. And it's the same when you kind of like, have seen those pictures where they clone the parts of people's faces. And a lot of times when they lose that little bit of asymmetry, they lose their distinctiveness and their beauty almost. My
Mm.
goal is always I tell people, especially my older people, my goal is to make you look like you 10 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever.
To make you look like you're you. So I've seen on some of your website and stuff, you talk about this zone of genius or being in this
Mhm.
zone of genius and seeing and believing like you can do anything and be anything. And I just am interested to know, how does mindset play in your role as an emergency doctor, but also in the aesthetics side? So for you as a practitioner, as a doctor, how does mindset work for you?
I think mindset is everything. I mean, I think mindset and coaching and sort of examining and really challenging and playing with my thoughts and being much deeper into gratitude and meditation has really changed my life in the sense that, like for example, that I believe in infinite possibilities, and I'm a coach as well, and I believe in infinite possibilities for everyone and for my clients. Because like for example, the fact that I made this med spa possible, if I would have listened to my parents, right? It's the whole like get a good education, stay in your employed job, and no matter how burnout you are or no matter how the conditions are, this is what you do till you're 65 and then you get your pension and like that's what happens, right? I think it actually is what a lot of creates that sort of midlife, what I call realignment that I see a lot is that especially women that come to me for coaching, they have been on this track that society told them they should do in order to end up happy. And then they find themselves kind of with the white picket fence and the 2.2 kids and the marriage and the job. And they're like, but it doesn't really feel as great on the inside as it looks on the outside. And, I made the switch not because I hated my career, even though I went through burnout later, just before the pandemic. And then again, during the pandemic, but just because I saw the possibility for even more fulfillment. Like I said, to say, like, I could really do more. And I hugely am a believer in growth throughout your lifetime. So, when I say infinite possibilities, it's really like if you could have anything, you can have anything. And you just have to decide what you want and you can have it. Of course, there's strategy. Of course, there's work. Of course, there's sacrifice. I'm not saying like I'm going to think about it and it's going to drop from the sky, because, even manifestation takes work. However, I think when I coach people and when I work with people, just the fact that I open them up, that they're not stuck, that there are other choices, that they have choice, that they always have agency is really what kind of helps like open their lives up wide open. And even if they choose only to make small changes, we know that like if I was to fly from here to Australia and I would change my trajectory by only 1 degree, I
Yeah.
would end up in a completely different place. And I think that's kind of how, living a life of infinite possibility works is that I'm really excited to see what the next 5 years will bring because it's going to be amazing. And so, and I've created this life where I get to do all the things I want. It's non-traditional, it works, and it's all mine.
I love how you just said you're non-traditional because literally as you were talking, I've written a couple of things down because my experience with any doctor or medical professional is they're quite, I'm just going to be really honest, and this is only my experience, as it's like, you've got a problem, I'm going to fix it, here you go. They don't think outside the box. They are very, like, this is like, how you said with the dermatology training, here's a rash, here's the cream, here's a rash, here's the cream, not oh, how long have you had the rash? What do you eat? How much sleep do you have? Like actually finding the root cause. And what I love that you said you've created this life. Have you always been this? You're very open-minded, and the fact that you've gone, you still are got your hands and body knee deep into emergency medicine, which I think is just wow. You've got to be a special somebody to do what you do, and then the fact that you're so open-minded about how you do your coaching and how you've created your life for yourself. You're not, you know what I mean by medical professionals, and they have to be like that, and they have to be like kind of straight focused. Here's the textbook. This is what I know. Yes, there's new medicines and new treatments, but this is working for my patient, so I'm going to stick with this.
And I think that's exactly what I alluded to. So first of all, thank you. And I received that. That is very kind of you to say. But what I wanted to say was that is exactly what I alluded to in that first question, is that medicine is very algorithmic in nature, right? Like you said, like you have chest pain, these are the things we do. And I mean, it is for very good reason, right? Because a lot of medicine is backed by science, but I think it's also a little bit changing, right? Like we know that we don't know everything. We know that there is like lifestyle is so important, mental health is so important. Like I think that the medical community as a whole is getting more open. And I think that was where part of that misalignment for me was, that I felt like, was I good at it as an emergency medicine doctor? Of course. Do I like it? Yes. And it wasn't all of me, right? Just like you have recognized in this interview, it's not my entire personality. And there was this whole part of me that I almost had to like shut off when I went to work, because it was the ER, and like, right, nobody, like, you're having a stroke, like you want me to push the TPA and not be like, how do you feel about your end of life goals or something, like, right? So, and I'm very good at that, but there was definitely this huge part of my being that wasn't being fulfilled and being met, which is why I found ways to create it in different parts of my life in a different sort of professional way.
You know how you feel like you had this calling, or this, when you had to be an ER doctor, you had to, or shut that whole part of your life off. If I have a mum listening to this right now, or anybody listening to this that is doing a career or doing something in their life, but they feel this, I know what that feeling was, because I've had the same feeling. It was just this, I can do this kind of with my eyes closed. I'm not fulfilled. I know there's more. So that was my inner calling. What did yours sound like?
I think it was very much like that, is that there is more. Like I can do this and I'm good at it. And that's why I said, like, it happened like, probably like 7, 8 years into my career, where you kind of have that day-to-day mastered, right? Like you've kind of honed your craft and you're like, oh, is this all there is? Because if
Yeah.
that's all I'm going to do all day, every day, at that time I was working full time until I'm 65 or 70, like, is the rest of my life just going to sort of be wasted? And so, I think, again, I found it really the bravery to really listen to myself through coaching, because again, like, it's very hard when you're a professional and you have a good job and you pay all the bills, and you especially have a job that is like very well regarded by society, to be like, I feel a little unfulfilled here. People are like,
What?
what do you mean? That is impossible. You're a doctor, by definition. This should be everything you ever wanted, you know? And I'm sure in some other careers it's the same way, where so I and that is also why I'm actually a Martha Beck Wayfinder coach, because she wrote this book and it's called Finding Your North Star. And I think I read the introduction, and only while reading the introduction, I felt so seen and I felt so heard. And this was years after I'd already started my work, that I was like, I need to train with this lady. Like, this is what I need to do. And that's really what she talks about, is that all of us have our own North Star, our own calling. And so many times it's like these rules set forth by society and this conditioning. And again, we can talk for hours too, especially being women, right? Like, and if you grew up traditional, or if you grew up as part of a certain religion, or if you grew up as part of a certain cultural segment, it was probably even stronger. Like in my house, like the expectation was really like, you go to college because there's no way you're not going to go to college. Like you get a professional job because there's no way you're not going to have a professional job. Like, right. You're going to marry a nice, like Protestant guy because there's no way you're not going to do that. Like that was sort of like, like that path set out where it's like, this is what you do. And I'm sure everybody has I have a friend who's Indian, and she always jokes that her choice in life was to be an engineer or a doctor because like her Indian first generation parents, like that was them. Like that is how you make it in life. You be an engineer or you be a doctor. It's your only two choices, like, right?
Yeah.
And so, this whole idea about finding your North Star is really to kind of calibrate and listen to the longing in your own heart. And as I said, like, I still have the same husband. I still have the same kids. I have the same house. Like, you don't have to blow up your entire life for it to look so different, because you can find that fulfillment, like, by a side gig that I do now. You host a podcast, by volunteer work, by activism, by, maybe even just switching departments or taking on an education role. I think the first thing is to really just to listen to the calling and just to answer it with curiosity. And then it's almost like, I think, a game of hot and cold, like, because so many of us, I think, have forgotten what we really like, or we've kind of pushed it so far away that it's even like, how do I like my coffee? Like, do I like walks or not? Like, do I like this form of exercise or that? And it's almost like a game of hot and cold. You guys play that game of warm, cold, warm, cold?
Yeah.
The kids play it?
Yeah.
And that's how I think about it, is to really like tune into your body and see if it feels expansive or warm, or does it feel like cold and constrictive, and then just little by little, with the little and the big things, turn towards the warm.
Yeah, I love that. That's really great for someone listening to this. Now, also, I'm just going to take a guess here, that the work that you've done has brought you to a place that, and this is rare for women that I see on a daily basis. A lot of people as wives and as mums and as higher career women can't separate themselves into, yes, you're a doctor, but you're also just Judith. What does Judith want and what does she need? And I feel just by us talking and by me being able to see you, you've nailed that. Like, yes, you have children. Yes, you're a wife. Yes, you're a mother. Yes, you're an ER doctor. Yes, you have this whole aesthetic medicine side. Then you've got your podcast and you do coaching. But I really believe you're your own person. Now, have I got that right?
I love that you can see that. Again, maybe I just need to come talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it is so important to get to know you. So maybe that is the first step. Like, who are you when all that stuff is taken away? And that's what I said. What do you like?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Free of all the labels, free of
Yeah.
all the everything, you as a person. That perfect, like we were all born perfect, right? Like those little babies, when they get out, they're like perfect. And somewhere along the way, we were told that we were not. So it's really going back to, like, if you're perfect, what is it that you love? And I ask myself that every day, like, what is it that you need today?
Oh, there you go, guys. That's one great thing. So for me too, as a therapist, I don't have children. Never say never, but I mean, obviously I have my little dog and my cat, but it's hard for me sometimes. I struggle because when I can see someone sitting in front of me, or sometimes online when I'm with a client, I can see that in the need of, they've lost themselves, that there's this whole thing of, yes, I'm a mother, I give all myself to my kids. And like, yes, but if you give it to yourself first, you can give so much more. And not only are you giving it to yourself, without you knowing it, you're actually a role model. So your kids are watching everything you say, do, and they're like, oh, okay. So if mum goes to the gym, or mum goes for a walk every day, or mum just has some vegetables every day, okay, that's how I care for myself. So I love it that, especially, you're such a role model for women of all areas of life, for them to go, you can be it all, you can have it all, you can be it all, and listening to you, because I can say it, but sometimes I feel like I don't have the backing because I actually am not a mother to say, can you please put yourself first and your whole life will change. It's actually not selfish. You've always been Barbara or you've always been Judith. Where has she gone? And if people can feed into that and tap into that, a lot of the stuff will dissolve, and a lot of the stuff you'll have so many aha moments and so many switches to finding your purpose and finding, actually, I'm happy.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, I think, too, that society right now has made everything super kid-centric. Like that and in coaching, we sometimes call it a manual. That's sometimes this like invisible manual we have about what a good mom should be. It's like she does everything for her children. And I'm gonna say I sit here before you and I had a huge problem with that myself. So, this is like the other side of it. But I needed like an hour coaching session before I would go drop off my child to go to a Pilates class. Okay. The first time, because I had such amounts of guilt that this was my day off. And, quote, a good mother, end quote, should want to spend every waking second with her children, even though they're multiple toddlers and sometimes they just drain all the energy out of you, right? Like there was no place to like drop them off to a perfectly happy daycare and go do an hour, actually 50 minutes only of Pilates for themselves. Like I needed coaching on this. So if anybody's listening, like this is also me on the other side, but I think that's also why I was burnt out, because I was giving to everybody else. I was giving to my work, and especially over COVID, it got really stressful. I was breastfeeding children. I had multiple children. I had a husband. Well, I still have the husband. And I was giving, except for the only person that was coming last was me. So really, like you so astutely kind of recognized, and thank you for recognizing that. Like I'm really grateful that you are like reflecting that back to me, because I'm getting to see myself in this beautiful light through your eyes. So thank you.
Done the work, so it needs to be, I want people to hear that it can actually, because a lot of people go do the work, oh, what is that? Oh, you're supposed to love yourself. But I've come out the other end too, and I'm like, huh. It just, everything looks so different. The way you talk to people, the way you talk to yourself, the people that you have around you, everything, isn't it? It's just totally different.
And you're right, your children, like after like dropping my kids off on my day off for a couple hours and going to do Pilates and maybe grabbing coffee with a friend, and I pick them up, like, you know how much more fun the rest of our day is? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's also the thing when you really talk about good mother or bad mother or whatever, like, not that we're all bad, but like, you know what I mean? Versus being like, you're driving me crazy. I just need 10 minutes to myself, but I'm the one that's not allowing it to myself, right? It's not anybody else. It's me having these weird preconceived notions that, oh, my day off, 24 hours are spent with my children. But guess what? I dropped them off at their perfectly great daycare where they're getting their social interaction, they're learning their letters, they're going on the playground, they're having fun while I get to have fun. And then I pick them up halfway through the day and it's like, I'm happy, they're happy, we get to do something fun. Like, and you're right, it's that modeling and that showing up as a different person. You're absolutely right. And I would love to hear about like your journey through finding Barbara. Like,
yeah, I was brought up very much that I did everything that especially my father wanted. So you go to university to the point where he would pick all my subjects at school. No, you're to do this, then you're to do this, and kind of had my whole life planned out to the point of, oh, you'll never get married and this, never this. It was very negative and very toxic. And then I did get married and stuff. So I got married, and on the outside it was like this perfect little life. And inside, I would say so I was with him for 7, 8 years. I'd say for 6.5 of those years, I was dead inside. I can't say it any other way. I was just like going through the motions, and like I had my job nailed. I was really good at it. And I was like, yeah. And I was just going through life, and I was just like, this can't be it. Like, I'm literally just, I didn't realize how much I was just dying on the inside. And then it just got to the point where I just up and left everything and obviously kept making these same mistakes over and over again. And after a while, after a few more years, I was like, oh, I literally have to go and speak to someone and work through this because I can't, whatever I'm doing isn't working. I need to get different perspective. I need to get some support. And the fact of me just reaching out, I mean, that has been, so I'm 43 now. So the lights kind of really went on when I was 38. And so from 38 to basically about last year was kind of like I'm just learned so much and gone leaps and bounds. And the thing is, it's a continuous process, isn't it? It's not something that
Right.
you kind of are like, oh, cool. Like we're not broken, but it's like you either live two lives, I reckon. You either live a life where you drive the same way to work every day, you're in the job for 40 years, and the same, which is great, right? I envy those people sometimes because I think, oh, I'd love to be like that. But I could have been like that. And I hated, it just wasn't for me. And then so the other way is like, this isn't working. Let me find a way. Okay, that doesn't work. And it's trial by error. It's being patient and also letting go of the I'm not good enough and letting go of the perfectionism. Everything has to be perfect. And for me, a lot of that interest in I was speaking to an aesthetics doctor today, it was so down to how I looked, just ruled my life for such a long time. For me to even come on a podcast with my hair not blow, it's just wet from the shower, I haven't blow dried, I haven't like done my face properly, is like Barbara, even of 2 years ago, holy hell, would never have shown up like this. So that's my growth, is because it's just like, you know what I mean? The more that you are yourself, the more. And before, actually, I just thought of this. Have you, when we're talking about aesthetics, medicine, and perfection, and people looking beautiful or pretty, I want to put this out to everyone. Think of someone in your life that you've met that on the first glance, you look at them, and I'm just talking about physical looks at the moment. Wow. Oh my God, they're so stunning. They're so beautiful. Oh my God, we put them up on a pedestal. When you start talking to them and getting to know them, you go, actually, you're really ugly. Well, you're not as nice. And isn't it interesting that it's the whole perception of, and it can work the other way. Once you get to know someone, I really believe that, as corny as it sounds, like the beauty within shines out, but you've actually got to allow yourself to have that beauty within.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you for sharing that. Like, thank you. And, it's interesting that it happened over a 4-year period, right? Because we're in a leap year. And mine kind of happened during a 4-year period too. So recently, with the whole it being February and it almost being the 29th when we record, I've had this whole thought about how much growth can really happen in a 4-year cycle. So it's interesting that you mentioned your own 4-year cycle. And like, imagine where you're going to be next leap year if we're going to just keep leaping, right? That's like the whole infinite possibilities. But you're absolutely right. And like looking and feeling beautiful are two entirely different things.
Mm.
And I love that you brought it to that because I think that's also like so important, that feeling beautiful. I mean, think about it when you have like a new lover and you like have this like romantic night or this romantic evening and you just feel beautiful and you get out of bed and then you look in the mirror and like your hair is disheveled and your mascara is smudged, but like just a minute ago, just because of how they made you feel or how you feel and all your pheromones and all of that stuff, you just felt like the most beautiful, irresistibly sexy woman in the world. And then you look in the mirror and you're just like, oh, what's going on with my hair and my mascara? And like, there's a hickey right here. And like, suddenly, like that negative talk, like bursts that whole bubble. And it's just like an extreme example to really understand how, like it's not what we see in the mirror always, it's the story we tell ourselves what we see in the mirror, right? It's
Mm.
like we see something and instead of seeing it, and that's really how affirmations work, right? Is that two people can see the same thing and one person might be like, oh wow, like look at your skin, it's flawless. If they've struggled with acne, and then another person would be like, oh, look at your skin, do you see that you have like red spots right here, like because they're like coming from a different perspective. And so I think that's absolutely right. That is why how you feel radiates through, and it's really like, what's coming in, and people can be beautiful and not feel beautiful, and there's these people that are intensely attractive and beautiful and stunning, but maybe not by conventional measures, if that makes sense. And I think
Mhm.
that is what we talk about. If this beauty shines through, it
Yeah.
doesn't have anything to do if they have wrinkles or not, what their weight is, like they just the way like their inner energy radiates up a room, like
Yeah.
they're intensely magnetic and attractive. And it is not because their lips are the perfect 1.6 upper to body lip like ratio, right? Like it's not because of that, it's because of their energy just shining through.
Yeah, that's so true. And like, I'm just going to toot my own horn here, is I really know what I'm talking about when it comes to chasing something on the outside that's never going to fulfill you. I used to do bodybuilding, and I used to be married to a bodybuilder, and I was brought up in a household that I was always told I wasn't pretty. But I can tell you what, when I would walk into a room as a little girl, and it continued, not so, yeah, it still happens now. I need to own it. Like I'd walk into a room or I'd start talking, whatever, and people would stare. And especially when I was really physically fit, got to the point where I was just like, even my ex-partner would be like, oh my God, why is everyone staring at you? Like he would actually get shitty because people would be staring. And that's a lot to deal with when you've been brought up in a household that says you're ugly and you're fat and you're disgusting and you amount to nothing. And I just want to do a bit of a message to anyone listening to this. If you are chasing that perfect weight, if you are chasing the perfect hair, the perfect skin, the perfect lips, whatever, I want you to stop and find out who told you that you weren't perfect, because it stems from someone telling you a story, telling you a narrative. Because I can tell you what, I got everything. I got to a point where I could show anyone a photo and I know everyone would be like, wow, everything's perfect. And I was feeling really shitty on the inside, and I would have picked it apart, and I didn't feel that way. And I just want to kind of squash that stigma that if you're working, I know as soon as you open your eyes till you put your head down on the pillow, you think about it all the time, you bargain with yourself, you're like, I must do this, this, this. Um, it rules your life, and it doesn't, this stuff really does need to come from within.
And it's interesting, right? Because there is like the feeling thought, right? That I call it, because a lot of times, like the reason you think you want to look a certain way is because it makes you feel a certain way. And so, like, you can examine that feeling and maybe get that feeling too without having to go through all the things. Because a lot of times it sounds like you had all the things and you still didn't feel that way. But you thought that if you looked perfect, like, how did you think you were going to feel? Happy?
Yeah.
Fulfilled? I don't know.
For me, it wasn't feelings, which is interesting. Now I'm a therapist, isn't that interesting? Nothing to do with feelings. It was getting the approval and acceptance from other people,
Mm.
which I've had my whole life. And it's so interesting. It just makes this stuff makes no sense, because I would always get stared at and looked at, and like girlfriends are jealous and would say things. And I know they always come back to you in the end. You always hear what people say. And I'd be like, really? I'm nothing I'd always be like, I'm nothing special. I'm nothing great. I'm so plain. I'm so average. Like, uh, but yeah, it's just so interesting that it was nothing to do with feelings. It was about, I think, again, like you can't even pinpoint it. It's like something that's kind of in the future. You can touch it, but you can't see it and you can't describe it. But it was just that thing. So if I looked a certain way, or I was a certain size, or was a certain thing, X was gonna. That's the best way for me to describe it. X is going to happen, and the X is who knows what.
See, this is what I'm saying. I'm arguing that X is a feeling. Like, did you want to feel accepted or worthy? Or
I
that is what I
tell
want to
you,
argue, is that
yeah.
X was going to happen, was going to be that you were going to feel different, because really in the end we all chase feelings.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I know in that point, in that time of my life, it was just doing the thing to get something, but my thought process hadn't gone that far because
Right.
I was too focused in the I'm not even there yet, got to keep going, doing this, you know. So it was that's really interesting. But it was just something, but I that's why I just would have carried it on forever and ever. Because I didn't have that end goal. I didn't have that, okay, I want to feel this. I was just head down. Yeah, gotta be perfect, gotta do everything the right way. Before we go, I would love to ask you, when we're talking about aging, this is for especially women around my age, what's coming out, what's new, what's something that I know aesthetic medicine, I wouldn't say it would be too slightly different for what we've got here in Australia and in the States, but if there's anyone that is looking in the mirror and feeling like they would like, to feel like they feel on the inside, what are some questions that we can ask someone, or what's some new treatments that are coming out that you would kind of suggest for someone to look at?
Yeah, I mean, if you're really asking me about sort of the future and the current state of aesthetic, I think what I really love about aesthetics is that I think we're thinking about aging now more globally. Maybe that's my own journey, but I think really that we're talking about aging holistically, about how it's really about sleep and cortisol regulation and hydration and healthy eating. And the same with aesthetic treatments. A lot of the research and that's coming out is really now about sort of regenerative medicine, at least in the United States. Of course, Botox and fillers, they're here to stay. But I think instead of like chasing every wrinkle, it's really also like, how can we maybe use some of the energy-based devices such as the Frax laser or radiofrequency microneedling or things like that to like tighten and regenerate our collagen overall? How can we use biostimulators such as here it's called Sculptra or hyperdilute radiesse to again stimulate our own collagen and get like more natural like fullness and regeneration than just like chasing this line and chasing this line and chasing that line. So I do think that, you know, the aesthetic industry, at least over here, when I look at what research and what devices are coming out, we are really looking more at global regeneration, a lot of emphasis on restoring of the building blocks of your skin. So that's your collagen, your elastin, your hyaluronic acid. And then also like really that merging of lifestyle medicine with aesthetic medicine. Of course, like I said, Botox and fillers are always going to be there. Over here, obviously, weight loss is a huge thing with the new weight loss medicines that got recently approved. And again, I'm a huge proponent of them, not, I mean, A, for the aesthetic parts, because we know that obesity is a disease. Obesity is very hormonally controlled. And I do love that we're not like, we've, or we're hoping to not go beyond like, always blaming people that are obese for their own obesity when really some people hormonally and genetically we're so predisposed, like, right, even with all the right healthy medicine. So I really love the idea that we have some of the weight loss medicines simply because we know that you can be healthy at any weight, and that if you, for certain people that are in certain BMI ranges, if they lost 10% of their body fat or so, that all their risk of heart disease and stroke and diabetes and hypertension and all of those things decreases. So, that's really what I see happening. And I love the fact that we're thinking about aesthetics in a more holistic fashion. And it is sort of exciting to know what technology is coming out. But really, honestly, all that I've seen recently, it's different ways to stimulate collagen, elastin, and to really help the body's own regenerative responses.
I love that. And I just love looking at your skin. If anyone could see it, it's just so glowing. And, I guess that it's like, what have you got on your skin today? Yeah, I don't think you'd even
Well,
go.
it is so funny because, like you said, I would have never shown up like this. It is the same thing. Like, I literally came from my office. I have mascara on with like an eyeliner and tinted moisturizer and a little bit of like lightly like nudish lipstick. Like, again, We did not do like, I love how you and I are so resonating because I'm the same way. I'm sorry. I could just came from my office. We didn't, I'm still in my office. I finished my last patient like 15 minutes before this call. So I had time for like a hairbrush and some lipstick.
You look
But,
stunning. Like
um,
the texture of your
again,
skin. I'm just like, I want that skin. You need to write
I
down.
want your skin. Your skin is amazing. Like I have been like your skin, your eyes, like when you say, I know that I'm turning heads, like own it because you do own it. For sure,
Oh,
claim it.
thanks. I've just been watching your skin the whole time, just in love, just going, I want your skin. Isn't it? See?
That
Isn't
is so
it
funny
so
because I actually have rosacea. So I don't have perfect skin. I do regular laser treatments and it's like everything else, like consistency over time pays off, right? So
yeah.
even if you don't have a ton of money for all the stuff, just the fact always wearing sunscreen, using good quality products, hydrating, eating healthy, working out, getting sleep, like, it's consistency over time. I think it's really sort of the key to everything, really. That as I get older, I want to be like consistency over time,
Yeah.
Um,
But also too, making sure you go to the right people. So that's
oh,
something
100%.
I'm really, really, really big on everything. It's either word of mouth, and I won't let anyone touch my like I'm very it's interesting that there's some people that will just go to anyone or look for the specials, but I really highly suggest if anything to do with aesthetics, anything to do with fillers or Botox or even a facial, for goodness sake, like do the research, find out why you're going for the facial. Is it just for relaxation purposes or is it actually for cosmeceuticals? Like, and find someone that uses the right products and is actually trained and it's not just, a fad. I think that's a really big thing that we can, before we go, that it's to do with whoever is treating you. I've been to so many places that you just turn up and get a treatment and it could just be needling or something. I never filled out a form. I never signed anything. They didn't ask me and then you go to somewhere else where you fill out 20 pages and you're like, oh God. But I know where I'd rather be. I'd rather be with someone that took the time, got to know me, actually found out my skin history and all that stuff rather than just turning up and not filling out any forms. There's a huge difference.
Or attacking you with needles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm a physician, and so I do definitely physician led. I have a physician led team, and I am a smaller boutique practice, but that's because we keep it like that by design. We want to make sure that all of our patients get the attention that they need. And you're absolutely right. A lot of the aesthetics and cosmetics industries aren't as tightly regulated as people might think.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it is up to the end consumer to do a little bit of research into who their practitioner is going to be, what are their credentials, how much training do they have, how good are they at what they're doing, and like here there is like this Groupon thing where it's like the super ultra special, like don't ever get the Groupon filler. We like this is February when we're recording this, and like it's when everybody does their lip filler specials. And guess how many of these I dissolve and fix in March? Like my receptionist and I, we kind of have a joke about this, that it's like, oh, it's Groupon filler season where everybody will go to anybody and get their discount filler. And then, a month later, they'll be in my office, or 2 weeks later being like, oh my God, can you fix this? And so absolutely, like do your research, go with a trained professional. It is your face. It is still medicine. It's still health. So that is not the place to like save some extra money. Does that mean the most expensive place is always the best place? No, but if somebody offers it, like I know there's certain med spas that are not physician run around me that offer like Botox at a price that you can't even buy it for. So then I'm like, either they're not going using legitimate stuff, or they're diluting it down, or who knows what they're doing. Like, so if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And when you hear all of the horror stories too, like at least in the US, they kind of all start with something like, oh, they met this like unlicensed doctor from Colombia and Florida in like a resort. And you're like, whoa, 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 this is not where you should be getting your liposuction, right? Like even like people that don't know anything like should know that, like, and there's some basic things like they should talk about your consent, they should look at your history, they should ask you your history, they should ask you about allergies, and then also like things that are without like any question is things like sterile packaging, sterile needles, like disinfecting, cleaning less, like none of that should ever be compromised because it's still, I mean, it's your body, it's your health, it's your well-being.
And I've never had fillers, and but what I've seen of especially like lip fillers, like it looks extremely painful, even with numbing cream. Is it painful, like lip fillers?
Well, so again, I do a nerve block. So for lip fillers, I actually do a nerve block. So we use numbing cream and do a nerve block. So I can say that in our office, it's not painful because you have a nerve block and you can't really feel it. It's like being at the dentist.
So I need to come and see you whenever I want
Yeah.
filler. Okay. It's gonna be an expensive trip, but actually, when you were talking about your clinic and stuff, I was like, I need to move to North Carolina so you can do my face.
I wish I could do it via Zoom. That'd be so cool if we could figure out a technology.
One day, that would be scary one day, but that's something I was thinking, yeah, I've got a trip planned for the States next year, hopefully. So I'd love to come and visit you in your clinic.
Like we should have coffee and hang out and do all the things to your face.
Yeah, please, can do all the things to this. And that's awesome because I've just seen videos of, I don't even have a tattoo for that reason, is that I'm a baby. I say that I'm probably pretty strong, but I've just seen the videos of lip filler and just been like, oh, that looks extremely, and I've heard from people saying it's extremely painful. So I was just like, okay, I'm coming to see you. So look, I'm going to have all the notes of where to find you, about your podcast, about your coaching, about who you are in the show notes. But where is the best place for people to contact you? Is it on your website?
So I love connecting with people, and thank you for that question. So I'm pretty active on Instagram at Dr. Borger. It's spelled out DoctorBorger. My website is www.theaestheticdoctor.com. So that's a great way to contact me. And then, if you're interested in all things aesthetic medicine and wellness, I have a podcast called the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. And so again, thank you for the opportunity to share that. And if this resonates with you, like, I love to hear from people. I'm very responsive. I answer your questions. So anything you want to ask me or have questions about, like, contact me.
Yay. It has been such a pleasure to speak to you. I just wish we lived closer. I feel ripped off sometimes when I connect with someone so well on a podcast. I'm like, oh, why do you have to live so far? Well, I live so far away. It's like, why do we have to live so far away from each other?
I think it's one of the most amazing things actually in the post-COVID era is that we've really found that these virtual connections can be real, right?
Yeah.
That these connections can be real, that these synchronicities can be real. And I think it's one of the most amazing things to come out of the pandemic, that we get to make these friendships all over the world. And I feel the same way, my heart is full and I'm vibrating with happiness. So thank you for what you bring into the world.
And just thank you for showing women out there what is possible, because a lot of women dull themselves down, don't allow themselves to shine, and that's me included, because we're worried about what people will think, or we don't think, oh, that's someone else, that could never be me. So the fact that you do what you do in this world, thank you for being the beacon of light for people to actually be like, oh, she can do it, so I can do it.
Well, that is always my hope, because we need the examples, and we're all examples to people, right? We're all examples of representation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and I'm sure we will talk again soon.
All right, bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope this conversation has added value to your self-care journey and inspired positive changes in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with a friend who might benefit from this episode. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or on your favourite podcast platform to stay up to date on future episodes. Your support means the world to me. I genuinely love hearing from you, so please take a moment to leave a review. Let me know which part of today's episode resonated with you the most. Your feedback guides the direction of this podcast, and I really appreciate each and every single one of you for being a part of this community. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, Studio Chat Podcast, or if you want to find out a bit more about my counselling private practice, head over to Instagram on self_care_studio, or head over to my website, selfcarebybarbarathompson.com.au. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep embracing the journey of self-discovery.